God bless everybody. This is a small recap for those that are going through the Bible plan and trying to keep up or trying to make sense or just need a little bit of a guide. I'm going to give you some quick little, tidbits and points. I'll be looking up at my screen just to kind of give this to you. The goal and my hope is to be able to make one every single day for the chapters that we should be reading, because I know everybody's kind of at a different pace. So hopefully this can help you, and this can help you get some direction, get some insight of how to study the word and how to be able to get to it, right? And there is a lot that happened. There's a lot of storytelling, so it's a little bit of an easier ride. We have one chapter that's kind of really big with genealogy, but out the gate we have the covenant renewal and circumcision. I'll be looking up like my notes, like I said. And basically this is where God reaffirms his covenant, reaffirms his promise with Abraham, or at this point Abram, and basically tells him, hey, I'm changing your name from Abram to Abraham, father of many nations. And we see that he is 99 years old, and he changes his wife's names from Sarai to Sarah, and commands him like, hey, the circumcision is going to be a physical sign of the covenant. For those that don't know, circumcision is basically snip off the foreskins of a male's genitalia. So if you don't know, now you know. Right. 18, we see the visitors coming to visit Abraham, which is a pretty cool thing, because we see essentially a foreshadowing, kind of like this angelic being that is also God but isn't God, and it's this weird thing. If you didn't catch it, guess what? That is Jesus walking around, God taking on a form that is that of a human and that of a man. And so Yahweh said the Yahweh, and we see this really cool dynamic where basically Jesus, or the incarnation of Jesus, this pre-incarnate version of Jesus, is walking around talking to Abraham and telling him these things. We also see where Abraham is being mad annoying, talking about like, if only 50, if 10, if and he's like, please don't be mad at me, Lord. Abraham's mad annoying, right? And so, but the way I have always visualized it is, this is Abraham, old man, just talking to this his Lord, talking to God, but he's probably just being an old man, trying not to be annoying, trying not to be irritating, right? And then we also see how the angels basically go out to Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah to basically try and save him, just because God is just that good, right? And then we also see the promise of Isaac, how God was going to ask for Isaac as a sacrifice, and God saved him at the last minute. We see that also foreshadows the coming of Christ and what Christ's sacrifice is going to be, and how he would have to give up his son. And he saw that at this moment, this was the moment that God was like, you know what, Abraham, you are truly about that life. You really do believe. This was to prove that you actually believed in me, that you trusted me the way that you thought you did. Obviously, chapter 19 is the infamous, Lot's wife turning into salt because Sodom and Gomorrah is being destroyed. This is kind of where like that, it gets kind of explicit and kind of dark, because you have literally these angels of God coming out and to speak to Lot and to kind of figure out what's going on, and ultimately destroys them. Now, there is a lot of debate and a lot of contention on the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. People are like, oh, it's because of the homosexuality. Well, if we actually saw the scripture, it doesn't really say that. It says that there was a lot of problems with Sodom and Gomorrah, and to the point where it was just that they had gotten so corrupt, so defiled, so wrong, that these people were literally trying to rape people that they didn't know. Do you think that that's okay? As soon as people come into a town, the entire town turns and tries to rape these men? No, that is not okay. So they had a lot more problems than just dealing with homosexuality and sodomy and things of that nature. No, they had a lot more problems than that. Then we have Abraham and Abimelech, and how Abraham basically lies about Sarah being his sister, creating this big old crisis for Abimelech and that drama. We see the birth of Isaac. We see Hagar's exile, where Sarah literally, now that she has her baby boy, can't take a joke, and Ishmael's laughing at Isaac, and she's like, yeah, he's got to go. I don't want Ishmael here, or blah blah blah. And then God honors Hagar and says, God hears you, right? And it's so beautiful just kind of seeing the dynamic. And this is also another place of debate where a lot of other religions, mainly Islam, basically comes to the conclusion and says, oh, Ishmael, we're the Ishmaelites. We're from that generation. We're from those people. We're blessed. We're related, but no, immediately no, absolutely false, right? So we have that. Obviously, we already talked about the testing of Abraham with Isaac. We talk about the death of Sarah. We see that Isaac's wife is gone to go get fetched. Abraham sends his servant to go look for Isaac's wife. And then when he finds her, we find that, Rebecca is literally just watering her camels, and then does exactly what the servant had prayed for and got honor. This is actually another place of debate from a lot of Islams, where they'll say, well, did you know Rebecca was 3 years old when she got married? And so that obviously endorses this child marriage. No, absolutely false. You tell me a 3-year-old that can carry around buckets of water to water camels, okay? These are buckets. So unless you know a super powerful, buff 3-year-old, no, absolutely not. Okay, so there's that. We have that, how kind of the romantic side of that, where like God literally sends the servant and says that when the servant saw you, he's like, oh wow, she's beautiful, blah blah blah, right? Brings her back home, everything like that. We have Rebecca basically is seen from a distance, sees Isaac, and she's like, oh, let me put my veil on, make sure who that is. And Isaac said he loved her immediately, right? He's like, yo, we got to get married today. Today we get married, right? And so kind of showing you like, there's a uniqueness to how God does things with marriage, and it's really beautiful to see that. And then obviously we have the death of Abraham, and then the birth of Jacob and Esau, and how basically Jacob and Esau were these twins. Esau got born first because, you know, he pulled his brother's leg, all these type of things. And there's a lot of theology, there's a lot of cool things to see there. But like I said, this Bible study isn't for that. That's something we'll talk about maybe in the future when we do another Bible study. But for now, basically we see that there is a lot of correlation about what's going on and foreshadowing of Jesus even in those things. Basically we see that Jacob is the deceiver, the trickster, right? And he basically steals Esau's blessing because his mom told him, hey, I overheard this conversation, I'm gonna make him his favorite dinner, you come and get the blessing. We also see descriptions of what they would have looked like. Jacob being a more fair hair, didn't have a lot of hair, was not a hairy guy, but his brother was hairy and smelled like the outdoors. My man got some stank on him, you know, so that was pretty cool. And then we have Jacob basically ending in chapter 28, having the vision and the dream of the stairway going to heaven and coming down and calling it Bethel, and making a promise to God saying, hey, if I get what you said, Lord, then I'm going to come back and pay my tithes here. And I'm going to honor you here, and I want to worship you here, right? And so we see a lot of foreshadowing on Jesus. And we see Jesus in chapter 17, chapter 21. We see how the miraculousness of, you know, of Isaac being born to old people. You know, Jesus was also born in a miraculous way to a virgin. We see the sacrifice of Isaac in chapter 22, the son, the substitute, and the 3-day journey. We see all of that happening. We see the promise of the seed, about how God is going to bless them. We also see that same thing mentioned in Galatians later on. The ladder in chapter 28, we see that, you know, how he is the connection between heaven and earth. That's Jesus. We see that in John. You know, the name change, the new identity, so much of Jesus just painted in these chapters, right? And like I said, there's so much to unpack here, but we're not going to do that now. Like I said, this is just kind of to give you bullet points of what you should have been seeing, what you could have been observing, and just keep in mind, like I said, write your notes, do your devotionals. If it's hard for you to read, listen to it. Listen to that sucker. Put that thing on while you're driving, or 1x speed, 2x speed, or whatever. Is maybe going to take you 20 to 30 minutes listening to it, if that, right? And so just do that, you know, take your notes, and if anything, put your questions down below, put your questions even in the Bible app, and we'll touch them later on. And so until then, have a blessed night.